I'm Tyler Mathisen, your host today. Today's topic is of high interest to anyone who is running a business, and it's how to manage your costs and how to do so specifically by relying more on alternative sources of energy. Obviously, any way that a business can reduce its overhead is worth considering, and here's one that can not only help your bottom line, but presumably help the planet as well. Let me give you a couple of housekeeping matters before I introduce our presenter today, who is back with us for, I believe, the third in our series of webinars. To ask your questions at the end of the presentation, there are two ways to do it. You can raise your hand, and we will call on you to ask your question vocally by audio, and I will identify you by name at the appropriate time during the presentation. The other way to ask a question is to type your question into the spot on your screen that you see and then click send. It will get into a queue here. We will go through them, take a look at them, make sure that we're not asking questions that are too repetitive, and we will present the questions to our webinar presenter today. And he is, once again, Professor Kevin Lyons, PhD, of the Rutgers Business School in Newark, New Jersey. He's an associate professor, if I believe I have that right, Kevin, in the Supply Chain Management and Marketing Sciences. And there you see Kevin's email in case you want to reach out to him after the webinar. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, everyone, for participating in today's webinar. Today, what I hope to do for all of you is provide you with some background information, some renewable energy / alternative energy information that can help you integrate these technologies into your business. One other area of background I wanted to let you know is that at the university I'm also affiliated with the Rutgers Eco Complex as well as the Rutgers Energy Institute, two research facilities that have a concentration on the concept of renewable energy and alternative energy. So we are presenting with you today a lot of good information that I hope that you can integrate. So let's get started. Just a brief overview of what we're going to talk about, and just to let you know, I have about 20 slides and we'll speak for about 15 minutes. The slide presentation will also be available online through two means. So you'll have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. So even though I'm going to be, in some cases, flipping through quick, you'll have an actual copy that you can go to the web and get. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some definitions in the theme of this whole presentation, give you some technology options, present with you a list of resources and networks that you can join, some financial incentives, as well as areas where you can obtain funding for a lot of the projects I'll be talking about. I'll give you an insight to some future technologies that are being worked on, not only in the big scheme of things, but also for small business. Some tools that I'm actually working on that can help you monitor and reduce your costs as well. And then for some research and development opportunities for you to partner with the university. So let's get started. The renewable energy, as far as the definition, is an energy source that can be used instead of fossil fuels. Usually a renewable energy source is energy that can be used and in the case that fossil fuels run out. This is, in some people's minds, a long way off, but to offset some of that possibility, we have been looking at and been researching renewables for quite a bit of time. Why is there a need? 90% of the world's energy supply comes from fossil fuels, and any interruptions in that process can have ripple effects, as you know, in the economy. And of course, fossil fuels right now and still today are considered to be very convenient and inexpensive. So why should we not have to rely? Well, the argument has been that fossil fuels will eventually run out. Now, this is a theme that you've been hearing a lot. However, this statement has been made many times. You know, we have 40, 50 years left, and that was statements that have been made throughout the century. We still have plenty. I think what's happened is that we've found better ways to use it much more efficiently. So the timetable on fossil fuels has been expanded. However, there is the concerns with energy from fossil fuels being damaging to the greenhouse gases and the other health effects that happen as a result. So anything that we can do to try to offset as well as drive down some of the costs is a good thing. But before we do that, we have to think about some of the transformations that need to be made in our mindset, as well as the economy, as well as policy in making this type of shift from our traditional energy systems onto something that would be considered renewable or sustainable. Our dependency and our willingness to make this a shift to carbon neutral, more efficient, making sure that it's a diverse supply option, not relying solely on one particular possible solution is not a good way to go. You have to look at alternative energy and renewables as having your own portfolio of many different options. And it creates economic development. If you are in this space, there's a lot of opportunities for small businesses, as I show you later in the presentation, where technology is now being developed by the small business community and also being used quite effectively within the small business community as well. And our goal with our research and with the renewables is to drive the cost down. Just to let you know, this is just a snapshot of the United States and some of the goals that states, through their policies, have put into their long-term goals. Just briefly, it's a snapshot of the states and what their goals are for introducing renewable energy as part of their statewide portfolio. So I thought I'd share this with you just so you can see that there is a larger approach towards moving in this direction, and anything that you can do to support your transformation as it aligns itself with your state is always a good thing. And this information has been provided by the Department of Energy as well as several other entities. So I wanted to give you some implementation considerations for how you go about making this type of transformation. Just a couple of things. First, audit what you're currently doing, and not only audit your energy, but look at your supply chain, look at your waste coming in and coming out of your business, and of course, conduct a thorough energy audit. Now, this is something that can be conducted by yourself or through consultants, and I would encourage you to utilize your local university as well. We provide this type of opportunity for small businesses to go in with my students to actually conduct this on your behalf. The second thing is obviously conservation efforts. This is something that's lasted many, many years. Start looking at what you're doing and how you're doing what you're doing, and try to modify those behaviors before you make any type of investment in long-term alternative or renewables. There are significant opportunities to reduce and negotiate with your current energy carrier. Not very many people do this, but this is something that we encourage. As you start looking at how you produce energy for the use in your business, a lot of power companies are actually negotiating reductions, especially if you have a long-term goal to reduce your own energy. Next, it's time for you to start considering alternatives in a phase-in approach, not at all at the same time, but phase it in and develop a long-term strategy. Monitor and adjust your program as well. At some point, you're going to see that as you reduce your energy portfolio and what you're using, you're going to become more valuable to your customers as well as your suppliers, and your company itself becomes much more valuable. And then lastly, innovations and new opportunities. And especially if you do take on to anything we talked about today, please promote it as much as you possibly can as part of your marketing strategy. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the opportunities that you can see here. I'm going to talk about some of the things that small businesses have at their disposal. These have been identified by the National Department of Energy, the National Resource Energy and Efficiency Renewable Energy Agency, and these are some of the topics that I want to go through real quickly. Biofuels are fuels that are made from agricultural materials, and what we're concentrating on is agricultural materials that are waste materials, not agricultural materials that are destined for the food supply. So there's a lot of opportunities looking at different types of switchgrass and other materials that can be converted into biofuels. Geothermal is another technology at the home level as well as small business. And basically what this is drilling cores down into the earth where the earth temperature is at a constant temperature, and then running pipes which contain water through those pipes and then back into your heating and or air conditioning system to offset the cost of having to purchase large-scale heaters as well as heating and air conditioning systems. Passive solar is basically design in windows that actually allow for the passiveness of sunlight as well as air to go through and heat as well as cool during different seasons. And I have two snapshots, the summer as well as winter is when passive solar is most effective. Photovoltaics, another word for solar panels. The technology is moving along quite nicely, and the price tag for solar panels are coming down. And this is just an example of how that is integrated into the business. Solar hot water systems are basically, look like from the surface solar panels, but basically they're tubes that contain water and or a light grade chemical that basically heats up using the sun, and then that is pushed through a heating system within your building. And lastly, wind technology. I know that you've seen the big white wind turbines, but there are small-scale business-sized wind turbines that are being used. And here's just a small example of a Chipotle restaurant that's just outside of Chicago that's utilizing wind technology if you are in a region where you get a consistent wind. What I have now is just the next few slides, some resources where you can get more information. The first one is called NJCERN. It's a database that contains resources where you can find within your state the different types of energy resources that are at your disposal. The next website is called Desire. It's a database of state initiatives that allow you to align your goals with what your state's goals are. So you can go to this website and find your state and then find opportunities there. The next are financial opportunities. The Small Business Administration provides loans as well as financial assistance for those small businesses that are interested in alternatives and renewable energy. And here's some of the programs. I put the website address much larger on the bottom so you can see it. Next are a whole host of grants and loans and financial opportunities as well to support this type of transition. Next is a Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology grant program. This is run by the Department of Energy. And with these types of grants and any of the other opportunities that you see, this is where a good university that's located close to you will help you survey some of these opportunities and help you with the applications. And Rutgers is one of those institutions. And then you have the rural areas. If you're a small business that happens to operate out in the rural area of the United States, there's several rural energy programs as well that are supported by the government. Next is calculators. How do you calculate all of this and make sure that you're staying on top of and measure what your progress is? Here's a site that's offered by California. However, it's a tool that can be used by any wherever you happen to be. So it's not necessary that you be from California. It's a tool that was developed there, and it's actually quite useful. The next couple of slides are just some of the latest and greatest technologies that are out there. And I just wanted to share with you that solar panels, for instance, are coming in all shapes and sizes. So when you eventually make your decision to make a transition to solar, seek out and see some of the latest technologies that are actually becoming much more cost-effective, but also the technology and the efficiency has gone way up. There's also integration ideas within buildings, looking at grid systems and how they're becoming more available to track your progress and help you identify areas where you can reduce your energy. And then also vehicles are now becoming much more advanced in utilizing alternative energy as well as being able to be hooked up to your electrical grid as well. And then I mentioned biofuels earlier, but there have been further advances in different types of materials that are being used to create alternative fuels. And a lot of the small businesses that we've worked with that produce a waste, especially if it's agricultural waste or a restaurant or many other different categories of waste, we've been able to work with small business to convert that waste into a diesel fuel that can be used to power their operation. So if you want more information about that, we can talk offline. So the big picture here is, looking at the future development of products and whether those particular products have an energy benefit. So we're at the university, and others are looking at this concept of design for the environment. Can you design a product that can be later used to produce an energy source? So you might be buying a product that you think that is just for a one-use purpose as well as the packaging, but we're looking at whether or not that product can then be easily converted into an energy source as well. And here are just a couple of snapshots using that mindset. We've worked on several projects that were quite successful where we converted waste materials into liquid natural gas, as you see with this waste management. Waste management has made a significant push to push all their vehicles over to liquid natural gas using waste. Here's a snapshot of anaerobic digester. This is a system that we're placing on the back of a lot of small businesses where you can take your waste, again, if it's agricultural or food waste systems, and actually get that broken down. It produces a methane, and that methane can be converted into a power source. Next is a tool that I'm working on that takes all of this information and allows you to monitor your progress. So this is more of a performance measurement tool that will be able to look at your entire energy portfolio and give you real-time feedback on how you're doing. The next slide is just a list of research opportunities that you can partner up with an institution like Rutgers, and we can help you make that transition from what you're currently doing now. If you're already making some steps and you want to go further, we can do the assessments and work with you to make sure that you're heading down the path towards future cost reductions as well as future integration of alternatives and renewables within your operation. And then the last slide is just basically giving you some assistance. As I mentioned, the Rutgers Energy Institute, where I work, as well as the business school, the Rutgers Eco Complex. There are several labs that I run that concentrate on just this particular topic. Rutgers has a green energy building program. And of course, the Small Business Administration, the EPA, and others have checklists that you can use to green your business. The next one is a green energy or electricity guide. You can look at your cost comparisons. What are you currently doing now, and how can you transition over to alternative or renewable energy in a cost-effective manner? So here's a website that will allow you to compare your costs. And of course, the two websites that I mentioned earlier, databases where you can find out more information about what's happening within your region. And that's it. Here's my contact information, and I encourage you to reach out after the webinar if you would like for us to work with you in this type of transition. I know that with small business, you're tied up with your day-to-day operations, and something like this will require a little bit of time. But as a university, it's something that we would be more than happy to work with you on. So thank you very much.
Kevin, thank you very much. And as has been our practice, I assume that we will be able to send copies of the webinar via email to anyone who registered for it, and you can also find it on CNBC.com at a later date. At any rate, let's start with a few questions that I might have for Kevin, and I guess the first one would be, how much can a small business legitimately expect to save in terms of its energy profile or energy costs by taking advantage of some of these alternative methods, number one? And how long does it take you to recoup via those savings the cost of any investment or changeover that you have to make to take advantage of them?
Yes, so two very good questions, and those always come up quite a bit. It really depends on the size and scope of the business and where it's located as far as the region within the country. But on average, we've been looking at anywhere from a 10 to 25% reduction in cost if it's done in a phased-in approach, because the return on investment on a lot of these technologies is quite expensive. I won't lie about that. And that's the reason why we offered up a significant amount of loan programs offered by state as well as federal government to offset those costs. Once those technologies are embedded within your company, you'll start to see the reductions immediately, but you'll also have to look at the return on investment. How long is that going to take? So we try to make sure that the return on investment in most of these technologies ranges within that 3 to 5 year period. We can get it lower if we can get a maximization on the loans and the grants and all the financial incentives that are there. The university.
In other words, if you play not the system correctly, but I guess that's a good way to, that's right. Any way to play. If you play the financing end of it correctly,
that's correct.
You can reduce the amount of time for the return on the investment to kick in.
That's correct. And as
Makes sense.
You start to look at the comparison of what the market is doing, the traditional fuel market and electrical market, those return on investment strategies start to get a lot better. So as the price of fuel and other technologies go up, your investment
is that, let's take the case of a company that has a fleet of vehicles. And we know that companies like UPS and FedEx and other companies that have large vehicle fleets have moved either to liquid natural gas or some form of natural gas propulsion. A lot of municipal transit systems are doing or have done that.
Correct.
Is there a point where that is more feasible than not by number of vehicles? In other words, it's not worth doing this if you got 2 company cars, but it may be worth it if you're a concrete ready-mix plant.
Sure.
And you've got 40 trucks.
Yeah, at some point, the volume of fleet actually helps. It helps you reduce your overall cost almost immediately. But we've actually seen, since the price tag of natural gas is significantly lower than traditional gas, anyone, even if you have a 1 or 2 vehicle operation, will see that reduction. The price increase will come from the actual cost of the vehicle. Initially, right now, the cost of these alternative vehicles are more. As the demand for these products go up, we will see that price come down. But the other issue is accessibility and availability of natural gas and where you can actually get it. And that infrastructure is being built as we speak.
Yeah, in other words, where can you refill your vehicle?
That's correct.
Or do you need to have your own filling station?
That's correct.
On site? Let's turn to some of the questions that have come in. And again, there are 2 ways to ask a question. One is to raise your virtual hand. And I don't see anyone who has done that thus far, but you can raise your virtual hand and then pose your question orally. We'll call on you and ask you to speak up. Or you can fill out a question and hit send. And that is where we find our first question from Yuv Mehta. Will the gas production from shale gas plays in the U.S. help delay the need to switch to renewable energy? In other words, are gas finds or the technology of getting oil out of shale likely to slow momentum to conversion to alternatives?
No, I think the genie, I guess you could say, is out of the bottle. The technologies that are being developed, not only here in the United States but globally, are moving in a fast direction. I think what will happen is that it will be a nice complement to the natural gas that's being mined now. We're just hoping that the debate of how you actually get it starts to subside, and whether or not we can all agree that it can be done in a safe way, and it will make a huge impact on the entire portfolio.
The second question from Jim Stotch is rather related to the first, and he says as follows: going back to the 1970s, whenever the cost of energy goes down, we go back to our wasteful ways. How can we evangelize green to make it mainstream for business? It's not top of mind for most business owners, and unless it saves money, it won't happen. In other words, do we need high oil prices, very high gas prices of conventional fossil fuels to drive people to make the kinds of investments that you are urging them to make?
Yeah, I've heard that argument before, and I would not advocate purposely raising the price of oil. That would be quite harmful for especially those folks who can't afford it, especially if it's part of how they need to travel to get back and forth to work. However, we can raise the value of participating in alternatives and renewables, meaning that a company that is moving in this direction is valued higher in the consumers as well as investors' minds as someone who's forward-thinking, someone who's worth an investment, and someone who is actually caring about their customers and their greater position in the world. So what we're trying to do with green is make that part of your innovation strategy, somebody that you would want to partner with, someone that you would want to actually have high esteem and value, and that's the mindset more of anything else that we're trying to change.
Yuv Mehra asks, how competitive is biofuel-based electricity compared with fossil fuel-based electricity?
Yeah, biofuel-based electricity is still in that area of 10 to 15% more because of the demand for it is not as high. The production of it is starting to ramp up. The quantity that's necessary to compete with traditional fuels is not there. However, we're starting to see this creeping down of the gap between biofuels and traditional fuels based on the volume.
In one of your slides, you showed a biomass to electricity conversion system. Am I right about that, Kevin?
That's correct.
How much would it cost to install? And I'm not sure what size of business this is. There it is. Anaerobic digester, food waste equals energy. How much would it cost to install an installation like that, and would a business be able to derive all of its electricity from that installation, or what percentage of it?
Yeah, actually that cost of that installation that's in the slide, that was a $70,000 investment. It's a large one. That one is actually running a fairly large facility. So you can, in fact, get the total value or the total need of your electricity from such a system. However, it would have to be built and scaled in size to whatever the size of your business is, and it heavily rely on the materials that you have access to.
The food waste.
To keep it going. That's
the food waste that you have access to keep it going. And this could be feed from livestock. It could be excess food from a kitchen.
That's right. Kitchen waste, food waste, prep waste from chefs and such, and agricultural waste, meaning grass clippings and other things of this nature as well, with a mixture of paper waste, cellulose waste as well. So cardboard and paper could be introduced into the system as well.
And this is run, this then converts to a methane, which
that's correct,
and generates the electricity.
Yeah, the methane then gets converted through a turbine into electricity.
Mm-hmm. When you showed a couple of businesses that had wind power generators on top, one was a Chipotle Mexican grill and the other was a business that you said was in the Chicago area, how feasible is that for a small business to install? What would a typical installation cost on, let's say, a hardware store, not a Home Depot, a hardware store, and what percentage of that company's electricity could you expect to generate from it?
Yeah, that's a tricky one because first there are many pockets within the United States where we wouldn't recommend wind turbines because of the lack of steady current that's necessary to keep the thing operational.
The lack of steady wind or lack of steady current?
Lack of steady wind.
Same thing.
Yes, exactly. So the Chicago area, perfect. A lot of wind going on up in Chicago, so that was obviously a good spot to have it. A lot of sections within the Midwest, and of course along the coastlines are very good. So we have to look at location. Cost-wise varies. Wind technology, depending on where you're in the United States, is offset quite a bit by grants from the federal and state governments as well. So the cost could vary. But for the small type of operation you saw on the PowerPoint presentation, you're looking at anywhere between $25,000 to possibly $50,000 for a full-fledged, really good system that's going to provide you the type of return you're looking for. But that's just a guesstimate. It could be a lot lower.
Let me ask you what may seem on the surface to be a dumb question. But when a business goes out and is going to make this kind of commitment of capital into a new wind system or a biofuel system or some sort of alternative, even the installation of solar panels, is there much fraud in this business? What do businesses need to look out for in selecting a contractor to put this in? Because these are new technologies in many cases. How do you protect yourself when you're out shopping for this kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for us to, as an institution, meaning Rutgers, we actually monitor and look at the manufacturers and distributors and their credibility in the marketplace. But the Department of Energy, along with all their sub-departments, also monitor and keep an eye on these manufacturers and businesses that are out there as well. So there are, through the links that I provided you, listings of those firms that have been vetted out through the federal as well as state government.
Let's go to a couple of questions that have been posed. Shall we go to an audio question, Alex, with John Lyons? Lysiak? Or is it Jen Lysiak? Jen? The mic is open. Jen going once. And here's, I think, Jen's question, which he has sent in through the email system as well, is what are places that one might be able to get grants?
A lot of places are through the Small Business Administration, which looks after and protects, and they actually have a section that deals just with alternative and renewable energies for businesses. A lot of state, depending on what state you're from. I know in New Jersey there's a lot of grant opportunities for solar. But it's state by state what they are valuing, and again, looking at their renewable goals, it will show you exactly what they're most interested in. But generally, through the federal and state governments is where you'll find the most opportunities for grants and funds.
Sure, and some of those sources are in your webinar materials that we will email to the questioner and to all of the attendees. Charles Pestow asks, will regional pockets of sources be created, for example, wind in one region, solar in another, that could impact ability for manufacturers to scale costs?
Excellent question, Charles, and the answer to that is absolutely yes. There are pockets and regions within the United States that do much better based on their region, and the manufacturers and the access to those technologies is part of that plan. So logistics and actually getting access to those technologies and then embedding those into the natural grid system is key. So your question is right on target, and that's actually what's happening.
Dylan Warden asks, I'm a freshman at the Ohio State University, Kevin,
Correct.
And I was wondering what degree would be most beneficial if I want to get into the green energy boom that's underway.
Actually, your traditional engineering schools are now integrating this into their curriculum. So a lot of my interns, research interns, are coming from the electrical engineering department as well as civil engineering. But we've also looked at and have been working with a lot of the biological and chemical sciences students. So you have a nice range of opportunities for you. On the chemical side, they're into alternative biofuels and such, biology, looking at different types of plants that have a biofuel capability. But any one of those is really good. And if you wanted to go just the traditional business route, we do have, at Rutgers at least, a Master's of Business and Science with a concentration in sustainability, and we've been getting a lot of our students to get into this field using that.
That's very interesting. So, but what I didn't hear you say there, Kevin, was a standard degree in environmental science.
Yeah, we have, at Rutgers at least, an environmental science, and I know the Ohio State does as well. But that's an actual good concentration to have as a major, and you'll get experience with all of this.
But your first instinct was to say, I don't mean to say the harder sciences, but engineering, electrical engineering, civil engineering, chemistry, biology.
Yes.
That those would be a very helpful educational track.
Exactly, with a tinge, because I have to promote the business school, with some business built into your curriculum as well, so you understand how those technologies can be introduced into the community.
Professor Lyons, Kevin Lyons, good to have you back with us again.
Thank you
for coming by. This concludes our seminar for today, another in our series of what I hope you have found to be very helpful discussions aimed at small business and entrepreneurs. And I should point out, with that in mind, that CNBC is going to have a town hall on small business and entrepreneurs, and we want you to attend. It is June 13th, 2012 in Atlanta, Georgia, and tickets to the event are free. To get a ticket, if you'd like to come, and we would love to see you, why don't you reach out to us at townhall@cnbc.com. Again, June 13th in Atlanta, a CNBC Town Hall on Small Business Entrepreneurs Wanted, townhall@cnbc.com. Kevin Lyons, thank you once again for being with us, and to all of you who have attended today's webinar from CNBC, all of us here, thank you for attending. I'm Tyler Mathisen.